Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn the proceedings over to our grand orator, Chris Livingston, for the grand oration. I'm very much looking forward to it. All yours.
Most worshipful Grand Master, right worshipful and worshipful sirs, my brethren and guests, I am Christopher David Livingston, a past master of Richardson Lodge, number 1214. Service and truth. We are assembled today in the auditorium of this grand building that serves as a memorial to our brethren who answered the call of God and country to serve and sacrifice for freedom and liberty and the American way of life. We dedicated this building to their sacrifice some 8 years after the date our brother Franklin Roosevelt declared as a day that would live in infamy. We too often forget that this building, this temple, is dedicated to our departed brothers. This building is not only a flame burning in remembrance, it is our northern star, lighting our way as a repository of knowledge, a guide to truth, a liberty, a library, and museum comprising artifacts and tomes to light our way down the rough and rugged road of life. Service and truth. I am reminded on this occasion of an apocryphal story about Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson on a camping trip. After dinner and a bottle of wine, they lay down for the night and go to sleep. Some hours later, Holmes awakes. He nudges his faithful brother. "Watson, look up and tell me what you see." Watson replies, "I see millions of stars." "What does that tell you?" Watson ponders for a minute. "Well, astronomically, that tells me that there are millions of galaxies and potentially billions of planets. Astrologically, I observe that Venus is in Aquarius. Horologically, I deduce that the time is approximately 3:15. Theologically, I can see that God is all-powerful and we are small and insignificant. Meteorologically, I suspect that we will have a beautiful day tomorrow." "What does that tell you, Holmes?" Holmes was silent for a minute. Then he spoke. "Watson, you idiot! Someone has stolen our tent." Sometimes we get so obsessed with our own lives that we miss the obvious. But I pose a question for Sherlock Holmes. Has our tent been stolen, or did it just blow off its stakes? What is the truth? I was speaking with a 50-year-old Mason the other day, Larry. Larry was raised just after his lodge was chartered. He met the brother that brought him into the lodge over coffee at work. This brother would deliver goods to where Larry was working, and they would strike up a conversation and get to know one another. And then one day, Larry asked the important question. "What's that Masonic ring that you're wearing? What does that mean?" One thing led to another, and Larry became a Mason, a good Mason. But that was then. This is now. It's 2023. The largest taxi service in the world, it's Uber. They don't own a single vehicle. The largest hotel service, Airbnb. They don't own a single property. The largest e-commerce retailer, Amazon. They don't have a storefront but they're estimated to reach $729 billion in retail commerce sales worldwide in 2023. Your average petitioner found out about Masonry on the internet. He didn't meet a brother over coffee. Nobody in Lodge knew him before he walked in the door. It's 2023. Men are wandering in a world that tells them to seek immediate gratification. Take the easy road. Think about yourself. They're learning about Freemasonry from podcasts, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, social media that didn't even exist 15 years ago. Now, if the Inquirer went to some good sites, not the Illuminati ones, and learned about some philosophy or history of Freemasonry, especially the history of Texas, he might be impressed by our order and want to join. One of the ideas that has become very popular and made its rounds on things called the Midnight Freemasons and the Laudable Pursuit and Livingston's magazines. These are real things for those of you who haven't heard of them. Comes from a 1949 book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Professor Joseph Campbell. 1949, incidentally, is the same year we dedicated this temple. Professor Campbell studied myths, rituals, and legends in cultures across the world and came up with this basic formula that he called the hero's journey, or monomyth. It's the basis of several films that you've seen, such as Star Wars and The Matrix. Some Masons have applied this to our 3 degrees, and especially to the legend of Hiram Abiff. The application can make sense, but I think some of our brethren tend to miss the tent, so to speak. Professor Campbell's hero's journey contains 3 main parts: a departure, an initiation, and a return. Now, he further breaks this down into 17 subparts, and I'm not going to talk about any of those because we'd be here all day, and it's not my point. I want to talk about the hero, Hiram Abiff. Here's where I think our brethren sometimes get it wrong. They get caught up in the stars. The managing editor of Midnight Freemasons says the hero's journey means, quote, think of Luke destroying the Death Star, or Neo becoming the One. I think this is pretty self-explanatory to those who have gone through the 3rd degree, end quote. 2 things I want to point out about this, about Hiram Abiff, when we think about our brothers who are calling the Masonic, who call Hiram Abiff the Masonic hero here. First, TikTok has this thing called main character syndrome. It's a description of narcissistic behavior. The world revolves around you. Hiram Abiff is not Luke Skywalker, and he's not Neo. He's not even the main character in the building of King Solomon's temple. In fact, he's not even the secondary character. He's the tertiary character, right? King Solomon, King Hiram of Tyre, and Hiram Abiff, a craftsman. The craftsman is our hero. The humble craftsman, and not either of the powerful monarchs, is our hero. The humble craftsman is the object of emulation in our Masonic journey. I was an Eagle Scout, and one summer I worked at Camp 3 Falls for the summer. Troop 307, Screaming Eagles. We had an adult volunteer, probably in his early 70s, who managed the woodworking merit badge station. Tall guy, big, probably played tight end in college. His son got in a wreck that summer and wound up in a coma. But Glenn kept coming to volunteer. He led his life by this philosophy: God is first, others are second, and I am third. He's my hero. And I see Hiram Rabiff and Glenn. He's a third chair guy. He gives it all up for the team. Some of you may remember those bracelets that were sold a few years ago, I am second. Freemasonry's message is I am third. We are taught that from the very beginning. The Master's charge on the night of our initiation is that there are three great duties which you, as a Mason, are charged to inculcate: to God, to your neighbor, and yourself. Our order gives you the order right up front. From the beginning, we are taught that God is first, others are second, and I am third. I remember my mentor, David DeBrill, and I'm glad to have Marlene DeBrill in our audience tonight. David would send you these handwritten cards out of the blue, or whisper a kind word in your ear when you were feeling down. It's about lifting brothers up, especially when they are down and have made a mistake. And not just a mistake in ritual, but mistakes in life. Because even good brothers make mistakes in life. But Masonry is a bond that transcends the bounds of the lodge room, the state, and our country. It's a brotherhood for life, and we need to remember that and assist our fallen brothers in the most tender manner, like it says in the monitor. And as it states in the Master Mason's handbook, quote, Master Masons must always practice brotherly love. If your brother should slip, offer your hand to him without judgment or harsh criticism. And remember that if tempted in the same way, you yourself may have fallen, end quote. We need to elect more David DeBrills to this Grand Lodge. My brethren, Freemasonry is not about me. I am third. So give it up for the kids through Shriners and Scottish Rite. Give it up for your brothers. Give it up. And it's not about you, and you are not Luke or Neo. You're supposed to be Hiram. It's about service. Second, Hiram Rabiff stands for the fact that there are absolute truths in life. The 47th problem of Euclid, also known as the Pythagorean theorem, is one of the 9 symbols on the Master Mason's degree. It demonstrates that an absolute truth can be established. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. The square can be proven. Now compare this with our modern American relativism. Our petitioners are living in a world where everyone's truth is subjective. They are told that everyone is entitled to their own beliefs, that those beliefs are equally valid. They're told that there's no such thing as truth. My truth might be different from your truth because of your experiences. The tolerant person takes the neutral ground. Isn't that what we hear today in society? What is lost on the advocates of relativism is that they're actually taking a position. They claim that there is no such thing as absolute truth. They are telling us that if I tell you 2 plus 2 equals 5, I'm entitled to that belief. The advocates are saying, pointing out that the correct answer is 4 is intolerant. Balderdash. In 1856, our Grand Orator, P.W. Gray, speaking in the Baptist Church before the craft resumed their labors in this grand body, remarked that Freemasonry's foundation stone is truth. Its strength is the cement of brotherly love and harmony, and its beauty universal benevolence, relief, and charity. In the dim obscurity of antiquity, we see the light of those virtues. And although neither wreck nor vestige of King Solomon's temple can now be found, no such fate has befallen the moral temple of Freemasonry. Founded on the imperishable principle of truth, it was destined to endure and preserve its proportions unimpaired. Our hero is a protector of truth, a truth in the fatherhood of God, the brotherhood of man, and the immortality of the soul. We hold these absolute truths we find these absolute truths questioned today in our society, but not in our Freemasonry, not by our heroes, not by our brothers who gave their lives to God and country in World War II. We stake our tents in this solid ground, service and truth. We stake our tents in this solid ground and dare the world to come. Now, I've talked about what we did 74 years ago and what we did 167 years ago. Let's go back a little bit further. Much time has passed since George Washington served as master of Alexandria Lodge number 22 in Virginia, but his spirit continues to look over us and every regular lodge in Texas where his portrait hangs. At the first presidential inauguration, as George Washington was about to take the oath of office, he paused. Something was amiss. Chancellor Robert Livingston, who was to administer the oath of office, agreed. Livingston, who was also Grand Master of New York, called on the master of St. John's Lodge to fetch a Bible. The inauguration proceeded in proper form, and President Washington, after taking the oath, said, "So help me God," and kissed the open Bible. Washington and Livingston realized the truth that such a laudable undertaking could not begin without the aid of deity. Service and truth. The years change and accumulate, but the themes of Freemasonry today Washington would know. For we are not this story's author, an author who fills time and eternity with his purpose, and his purpose is achieved by our duty to God, our country, and then to ourselves. Never tiring, never yielding, never finishing. We renew that purpose today to make our lodges better, to make Grand Lodge better, to make Freemasonry better, to make Texas better, to make America better. We accomplish that task by remembering our values, remembering our hero. Just like our forefathers, we have to stake ourselves in the firm foundation of the principles of Freemasonry. Our work continues, the story goes on, and the angels still ride in our whirlwind of life, while God directs us through the storm. Service and truth, my brethren, ingrain in your daily life that God is first, others are second, and I am third. Search for the truth, even in this ever increasingly complex and confusing digital world. Sometimes we have to peek around the canvas of the tent. Sometimes we have to set the tent aside to gaze at the star. But the message is always the same: be Hiram.